Good morning, dear colleagues. Today our theme is ossa splanchnokranii. It means that we should study the bones which forms the skeleton of the face, and main function of it is fulfill the process of mastication. Let us try to find the main bones of splanchnokranii. First of all, I'd like to begin from nasal bone. Here it is. Then this green one, it's lacrimal bone, os lacrimale. This brown one is os maxilla. Then gray bone is os zygomaticus. If I try to look inside of the nasal cavity, so here we can find concha nasalis inferior. Sure, concha nasalis inferior does not fulfill the process of mastication. Some of these bones are connected with the respiratory system and helps to fulfill a respiratory function. Also, this concha nasalis inferior. Then we shall turn our skull this way, and last our class we already have studied this palatine bone, os palatinum, and this bone which divides nasal cavity into two symmetrical parts, vomer. Some bones is absent here. First of all, mandible, and oschioidum, hyoid bone. Oschioidum is bone of the neck, but according to development in intrauterine period before the birth, it develops as bone of the skull. And also, we can't demonstrate very small 3 bones inside of pars tympanica, ossis temporale, so named ossa or ossicula auditiva, very small 3 bones inside of temporal bones, which are responsible for process of movements, uh, different environments for fulfill the process of audition. And we already have said that these three very small bones, ossicula auditiva, incus, stapes, and malleolus, they have such feature that they does not growth during the growth of body. So in newborn man, which has the length of the body 50 centimeters, and in adult person who can have the length of the body 2 meters, for example, the size of these three bones are practically the same during the whole life. But this is only features. Now we shall point our attention at the most important bones of splanchna. First of all, os maxilla. I shall use this model of maxilla and compare with the skull. Maxilla has a central part which named corpus maxilla. Here it is, corpus maxilla. This corpus inside has a cavity, here it is, which contains the air. So this cavity serves for, first of all, the process of warming of the air in cold period, and second, it serves as resonator when we get cold. Those who are close to us can hear that we speak with some non-usual pronunciation, because this air inside of the cavity doesn't work as a resonator. That's why our sound will be unusual. This cavity, named sinus maxillaris, or cavum haimari, sinus maxillaris, or cavum haimari. This author was first who studied the features of this cavity. So, Gaimarova пазуха in Russian, or cavum haimari, or sinus maxillaris. It's interesting that inside of the nasal cavity we can't see this large hole. This hole is only on the distinct bone. Now I use the left part of sagittally cutted skull, and this cavity sinus maxillaris we can demonstrate only try and look from anterior or posterior side. So here it is. There is an entry into sinus maxillaris through small fissure. So two nasal concha hide this hole. So concha nasalis media, which is part of the ethmoidal bone, and concha nasalis inferior, they hide this agitus at the sinus maxillaris, and that's why we can find only a very small fissure through which we can enter sinus maxillaris. So again, let's repeat that sinus maxillaris is an cavity inside of the corpus maxilla. So this most large central part of os maxilla is corpus maxillaris. Corpus maxillaris has several fascias. Exactly. Facies facialis, which take place anteriorly. Here it is, fascial place. Facies facialis. Then this orbital fascia, facies orbitalis, it's in orbit. Then I shall write down. This is facies facialis. On anterior surface of the corpus maxilla. Then second is facies orbitalis. Facies facialis, corpus maxillae. We are speaking about fascias of corpus maxillae. So facies facialis, and here it is, facies orbitalis, the next. Orbitalis. Here it is, facies orbitalis, ossis maxillae, corpus maxillae. And let me ask you, what wall of the orbit it forms? Sure, it forms the inferior wall of the orbit. Here it is. Inferior wall, lateral wall, superior wall, and medial wall. So corpus maxilla forms inferior wall of the orbit. Then, if we turn this way, we can demonstrate the facies nasalis ossis maxillae, corpus maxillae, facies nasalis. Facies nasalis, corpus maxillae. Here it is, facies nasalis. And again, we can demonstrate facies infratemporalis ossis maxillae. Here it is, facies infratemporalis ossis maxillae. Facies infratemporalis. So I can turn this way. Facies infratemporalis. Here it is. Facies infratemporalis. So corpus maxilla is central part. Inside of it there is sinus maxillae, and corpus maxilla has 4 fascias. Each of them has its own name. And now, besides the corpus maxilla, there are several processes. First of all, this one. What is this? This one. This one. What is this? It's contacts with frontal bone. That's why it's processus frontalis. So this is processus frontalis. Processus frontalis. Processus frontalis. Then this is large and thick process, processus zygomaticus. This is zygomatic bone, and processus zygomaticus connects with zygomatic bone, so they are common structure. So zygomatic process, processus zygomaticus, and this is zygomatic bone, processus zygomaticus. Processus zygomaticus. Third process is this one. What is this? It's process between the nasal cavity and oral cavity. It divides nasal and oral cavity between each other. So this is processus palatinus. And last time we said that processus palatinus, here it is, processus palatinus, together with lamina horizontalis ossis palatina, forms palatum durum or palatum osseum. So third process is processus palatinus. Processus palatinus. In parentheses, I shall write it forms palatum osseum or palatum durum. It's the same, palatum osseus, osseum. So, processus palatinus is the third process. And last, fourth process serves for attachment of the teeth and this small cavities for the tooth radixes. They called alveoli. So processus alveolaris. If this is alveola dentalis, so for all the teeth of maxilla, this process called processus alveolaris. Number 4, processus alveolaris. Processus alveolaris. 4 processes. It's interesting that we can see that 8th tooth has now grew completely. This tooth very often in men appears when person already is adult. So this 8th tooth called tooth of wisdom. So when it appear, person is quite clever, is wisdom. And that's why very often we can find it not grew up completely, like here. Sure, it's a joke, but we can say that the person wasn't quite wisdom. And now, when we know that there are corpus maxillae and 4 processes, let's try to find several details or anatomical features in the bone. First of all, we already know that there is foramen infraorbitale. Here it is, foramen infraorbitale. These foramen infraorbitales take place in the named fossa canina. This place is connected with third tooth, which called dens caninus, because in prey animals it is very long and serves for aggression. It is for hunting to another animals. So dens caninus, and that's why this fossa canina, and in deep of fossa canina we can find foramen infraorbitale. So I'd like fossa canina, it is connected with dens caninus. Caninus means dogs, so this is groove of dog, and this is tooth of dog, and on the deep of this fossa canina we can find foramen infraorbitale. Foramen infraorbitale. Foramen infraorbitale. Foramen infraorbitale. Now, please try to palpate this place in your face. You can find the pain if you touch seriously in this region. Why? Because through this foramen infraorbitale passes nerve with the same name. So nervus infraorbitalis passes through this foramen infraorbitale, and we can feel the pain when we try to palpate seriously this region. So, if we try to enter deeply in foramen infraorbitalis, we can find that it is prolongates with canalis infraorbitalis and sulcus infraorbitalis. Canalis and sulcus infraorbitalis are placed on the orbital fascia of corpus maxilla. So, foramen infraorbitale and canalis infraorbitale and it prolongates also with sulcus infraorbitalis. Sulcus. Okay. Foramen infraorbitalis, which leads us to canalis infraorbitalis, and here it is sulcus infraorbitalis. So, another important structure is canalis incisivus. It's difficult to demonstrate it here because this spring miss us to find it. So I change the specimen, and here I'd like to demonstrate you canalis incisivus. Canalis incisivus. These two first teeth are called dentes incisivus. Incisivus means in translation that they can cut the food. So this first two teeth serves to cut the food, not only the food. For example, women, when they sew, for example, a garment, they very often cut the thread by this teeth. So this dentes incisivus serves for cutting any subjects. And that's why if it's dentes incisivus, so this canal called canalis incisivus. It serves for the same name nervus incisivus and arteria incisiva, which fulfill this canal. So, canalis incisivus. Incisivus. Canalis incisivus. And I said dens, that means tooth. Incisivus. Dens incisivus. Canalis incisivus and dens incisivus. Another interesting details on os maxilla are these small foraminae. Where we can find them? They take place on this infratemporal fascia of the corpus maxilla, this part named tuber maxilla. This is tuber maxilla. This is tuber maxilla. This is tuber maxilla and this is tuber maxilla. And on tuber maxilla we can find very small foramine. They have quite long name, foramine, in plural. Foramina. Alveolaria. Superiora. Posteriora. Foramina alveolaria superiora posteriora. Why foramina? It's clear that it's small holes. Alveolaria, that means through these foramina, nerves pass inside of the bone to the alveola dentalis, to the roots of the teeth. They can lead the nerves and vessels for supplying of upper teeth. Why foramina alveolaria superiora? Because for maxilla on the upper shoe bone, and posteriora because it's only for posterior teeth. That means for so named molars. Molars. That means three last teeth. That means 8th, 7th, and 6th. For anterior teeth, there are another canals with possibility to supply them with blood and nerves. So, foramina alveolaria superiora posteriora serves for innervation of the posterior three teeth of upper shoe. And also, I'd like to demonstrate this canal, canalis palatinus major. Canalis palatinus major. This canal is formed by several bones, both maxilla and os palatinum and os sphenoidali. Three bones together forms this canal. And on the corpus maxilla we can find sulcus palatinus major. Sulcus palatinus major. So sulcus palatinus major and canalis palatinus major are structures which are connected with each other, and one is prolongation of other. So I should write down sulcus palatinus major and canalis palatinus major. Sulcus palatinus major and canalis palatinus major. So it's enough. Now we can say that we have finished with studying of maxilla. And now, in comparison, the shearing bone of lower part of oral cavity. This is mandible or mandibula. It's interesting that maxilla is paired bone. There is left and right maxilla. But mandible is impar bone. So it was connected from two symmetrical parts before the birth. So in adult person, it's a single bone. Mandibula has corpus mandible. Here it is, in the middle of it, and two rami, ramus mandibula. Here it is, ramus mandibula. It's corpus mandibula, and here it is, ramus mandibula. Mandibula. Corpus mandibule, and two rami mandibule, ramus mandibula sinistra and ramus mandibula dextra. Ramus mandibule, ramus mandibula. On place of connection, ramus and corpus, we can find an angle of mandible, angulus mandibula. We can see that between corpus and ramus there is angulus mandibula. Angulus mandibule. Angulus mandibule. Corpus mandibule, ramus mandibule, and angulus mandibule. On the region of angulus mandibule, we can find this tuberositas masseterica for musculus masseter, muscle with main function of mastication. Here it is, musculus masseter, number 11. So to move the mandible, musculus masseter attaches to this place which named tuberositas masseterica. Tuberositas masseterica. Tuberositas masseterica. Tuberositas masseterica. For insertion of the same name muscle, for chewing processus of mastication. So, tuberositas masseterica. And just now, if I turn an opposite side, internal side, we can find the same structure on internal surface. Here it is. Also, tuberositas but pterygoida. Tuberositas pterygoida. Why? Because here the pterygoid muscle attaches. So, place of attachment of pterygoid muscle is a reason of this name, tuberositas pterygoida. Tuberositas pterygoida. Tuberositas pterygoida. So, then another important structures. On the ramus mandibulum we can find two processes. One of them serves for temporomandibular joint. This one. It serves for connections with fossa mandibularis of temporal bone. This way. So, this is processus condylaris. Processus condylaris. I write down ramus mandibulae, point processus condylaris as articulation head for joint temporomandibularis. And another of it, another process is processus coronoideus. Processus coronoideus. Coronoideus. Processus coronoideus. Processus coronoideus also serves for attachment of this muscle. It's temporal muscle. Temporal muscle, together with masseteric muscle, serves for process of mastication, and when it contracts, so mandible will lift up. So when this muscle will contract, we shall close our mouth. And the place of insertion of this muscle is here. What is it? It's processus condylaris. processus coronoidus. So now we already know the two processes here, and also quite important canal, canalis mandibulae, canal of mandible, which serves for nerves and vessels. Canalis mandibulae. Canalis mandibulae. Sometimes they call it canalis alveolaris inferior, but also canalis mandibulae. Here it starts, but where it is, it will finish, where we can find its ending here. This place named foramen mentale. Mentus, it means chin. So foramen mentale. Foramen mentale. Here it is, foramen mentale. It's paired, so we can find it from the left side and from the right side. This is tuberculum mentale. Tuberculum mentale. Tuberculum mentale. Tuberculum mentale. And very interesting line. Here it is. On internal surface of corpus mandibular. Here it is. It's linea mylohyoide. A linea mylohyoide. For attachment, the muscle with the same name, musculus mylohyoidus. This is muscle which close this place and serves for diaphragm of the oris. Diaphragma oris. So I shall write down linea mylohyoidea. Linea mylohyoidea. It serves for attachment of musculus with the same name, mylohyoideum musculus mylohyoidum, and two of these muscles, right and left, they form diaph Diaphragma oris. Diaphragma oris is the wall, inferior wall of the oral cavity, which is formed by the soft tissue and muscles. Diaphragma oris. Os oris means the mouth. So diaphragma oris means diaphragm of the mouth. So now we finished to study the main features of os mandibula, and now several small details according to the zygomatic bone. Zygomatic bone. Zygomatic bone has orbital surface, has temporal surface, and fascial surface. So it has three surfaces: orbital, fascial, and temporal. And for us, it's important that practically in each surfaces we can find some small foramina which serves for providing nerves. Os zygomaticum. First of all, foramen. Zygomatico orbitalis. Foramen zygomatico orbitalis. I use the natural bone, and we can find here very small but important foramine zygomatico orbitalis. Here they are, foramine zygomatico orbitalis. Okay. Now I shall turn to the temporal surface, and here it is, foramen zygomatico temporalis. Foramen zygomatico temporalis. Foramen zygomatico temporalis. And also on the fascial surface we can find foramen zygomatico faciale. Foramen zygomatico faciale. All three foramina are continues to each other. Foramen, zygomatico facialis. Foramen zygomatico facialis. So nerves which passes inside this foramine are also contiguous, are also prolongates from each to other. And maybe last detail for today's theme. We finished with os zygomaticum, and now I'd like to demonstrate os lacrimale, quite small bone, os lacrimale, which is between os maxilla and os etmoidale. Very small bone, but for us it's very important that here we can find this canal. What is this? It's canalis naso-lacrimalis. Canalis naso-lacrimalis. Canalis naso-lacrimalis. It's placed on the medial wall of the orbit between two bones, lacrimal bone and os maxilla. And this canal leads from the orbit into the nasal cavity. From orbit, I can enter to nasal cavity through this canal. So, nasal lacrimal canal serves for connecting the tears which forms in the orbit in lacrimal gland in lateral angle of the orbit and the nasal cavity, so tears could be drainaged into the nasal cavity here. So today's theme isn't quite difficult, but a good possibility to repeat all the previous bones which we have studied before. So I recommend you now to study each bone and to find all the structure which you can find them. And now, the next lesson will be last lesson in the theme of bones of the skull, topography of the skull. And after it, we shall make our first small control lesson. So you need to prepare all the material, and you shall explain the structure of each bones and demonstrate all the features, all the details which we can find on each bone. Thank you for attention.